Welcome to Hope is Here. My name is Greg Horn, and continuing our conversation with Rusty George. A lot of you probably recognize that name here in Central Kentucky. He was on staff at Southland Christian, was the founder of the 608 Sunday evening service that I know a lot of you have attended. He's been out in California, been the lead pastor for 15 years now at a church called Real Life Church in Valencia, California. God's doing some great things there. They're averaging about 7,000 in attendance every weekend. They also have helped plant churches. Just really, really great church. And he's been with us the past couple of days talking about Micah 6:8 that talks about justice, mercy, humility, and a simple path to following Jesus. And Rusty, chapter 7 of your book, as Christians, we want to help a lot, but you actually entitled one of your chapters, When Helping is Actually Hurting. Can you share a little bit with us about that?
Yeah, well, I had this experience several years ago where we had just moved to California, and there was a couple in our church that said, "Hey, have you been to Philippe's yet?" I said, "I have no idea what that is." They said, "Well, it's where the French dip originated." I said, "Oh, okay. I mean, I guess I assumed that was France, but that's fine. We can do that here." So They took us down there to this place in downtown L.A., and we would have never been able to find it, but they knew right where it was. And we get out of the car, and, of course, we're on the streets of downtown L.A., so there's all kinds of stuff going on. And this individual walks up to us, and he says, "Do you guys have any spare change or some money? I'm trying to get a bus ticket back home to Kentucky." I thought, I got you, because I know Kentucky. So I started asking him some questions about where he was from, and he had some right answers and some he wasn't real sure about. And finally, the guy that we're with, he was kinder than I was, because he immediately pulled out some bills and handed it to him. And this guy walks away. And I noticed he goes over and he gets on a really nice bike and rides off, and I thought, oh, my goodness, what in the world just happened? And then this guy's feeling really bad, like, oh, why did I give him the money? And what's he going to do with that? And maybe, this was all a lie. And his wife looks at him and says, "I don't think it matters what he does. I think it matters what you did. You did the right thing." And I was thinking about that, and I thought, isn't this the reason why we all kind of shy away from being generous towards people, especially those that we see maybe on the street corner or people that are in dire straits or in need right now? Is one, we think about what's this going to cost me, but we also think about it's my responsibility to figure out if I can give you something you can handle. Is that a right way to think about things? Some ways, no, but in other ways, yes, because I think we often help people without thinking through, is this really what's best for them? A little bit like when your kids come up to you and they ask for, can I have some money for the ice cream truck? And you think, well, yeah, I can give you the money, and that would be fine. The problem is it's 4:30 and we're about ready to have dinner, and this is going to, as we've all heard, spoil your supper. So you have to have a little bit of thinking about how do we help somebody without putting them in a worse position. And we all fear that if we get just with people and we help them in ways of maybe finances or resources, that we're going to enable the problem rather than actually heal the problem. So there's a great resource out there called Helping Without Hurting that became very helpful for my work as well, and we were just able to really kind of peel that back and figure out what do people really need beyond just dollars. How can I go beyond that? And I think you have to start by asking that question of, what is a real, genuine way I can help you rather than just enable you, like the old Chinese proverb, give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. How can we really do that?
Well, I like that you also talked about that, sometimes our fear and generosity, we actually, hinder them from helping ourselves. And we talk about how can our justice offer a hand up more than a hand out? And I know, like you said, there's always that battle between that. I love what your friend's wife just said, don't worry about him. You did what you thought you were to do, yet sometimes, like you said, we're hurting people other than we're helping them. And you went on to address in the book about offering help and dignity. And sometimes, it's not about actually financial resources. It's just about maybe showing people just a little bit of dignity through our time, isn't it?
It is. I think it's simple to hand somebody a $5 bill or even $1 and just walk away. But to stop and ask somebody, hey, tell me your story. Where are you from? This is a guy that had parents. This is a guy that had a kindergarten teacher. This is a guy that had hopes and dreams, and here he is. So why is that? What's going on in that person's life? Is there more we could provide? Is there maybe a chance to pray for that person and help them find God in this situation? And I know that changes our thinking. It can mess up our schedule. We're busy. We're trying to get somewhere. But it really can go a long, long way. I think about this story, and I don't think I shared this in the book, but a few years ago, Dave Stone from up in Louisville at Southeast Christian Church, he was going to be in California, and they were bringing the North American Christian Convention out here, and he sent me a text and said, "Hey, do you want to get lunch?" And I said, "Sure." And he told me where his hotel was. So I found a place down in L.A. that would be close to him, and I drove down there and parked on the street and walked in the restaurant and sat down, and he was late. And I thought, well, okay, traffic in L.A. and all that. And he's like 20 minutes late. And I started texting him, "Are you okay? Did you find the restaurant?" About 30 minutes after, he comes in, he sits down, and we start talking. He said, "I'm sorry, I got hung up talking to our friend out there." And I look outside, and there's a guy sitting on the street corner, and I walked right by him, and Dave sat down and talked to him. And I was so amazed by that, and I said, "Well, tell me what your line of thinking was there. What were you going to do?" He said, "I just wanted to know his story, how he got here, what's going on in his life." And I invited him to come in. He didn't want to come in, so we'll just get him some food, and I'll take it to him. And, talk about feeling like an idiot, Wow. I'm not worthy. But it just reminded me, once again, the power of, providing a little bit of dignity for somebody who has so many people pass them by on a daily basis, and listening to their story. I think about Jesus going into the pool of Siloam that one day, and there's that guy that's been, an invalid for 38 years. He's been crawling around and relying on other people to get him to this pool and asking for money and all these, difficult things. And Jesus goes up and talks to him. Jesus doesn't even heal him right away. He says, "Do you want to get well?" And he wants to know more about him. And the guy even gave the wrong answer. He didn't even say yes. Jesus still healed him, but it began with a conversation.
Well, obviously your book, Justice, Mercy, Humility, you talk about mercy, and yet one of the points that really resonated with me, because in my 15 years of doing ministry, I've found this to be so true. And you made the title was called Receiving Mercy, and you made the statement that you said, sometimes the hardest person to offer mercy toward is yourself.
It is, and you and I have had this discussion before, because, we are our worst critics because we know what's going on in our heads. We know the thoughts we think, the evil that lies beneath. We know the things we've done we've not told anybody, and that's why the age-old principle of it's our secrets that make us sick is so true, because when left to ourselves, we just consider it to be worse than anything anybody else has ever gone through. And so we just get stuck in this cycle of feeling really sorry for ourselves and feel down on ourselves. There's no way God could love me. There's no way God could help me. We've talked in previous episodes about our friend Jim Howard and his ending his life through suicide, and just the devastation of all of that. And Jim got into a place where he thought, "Well, I don't see any hope. I don't know if this can get better." And I'm sure the voices in his head told him how awful he was and brought up things that he had done or maybe hadn't done, and just the way the enemy works on our minds, and couple that with a history of depression and those kind of things, it just really begins to be very, very difficult for us. And being able to extend yourself mercy, not because you're just letting yourself off the hook and saying, "You know what, it's okay, everybody makes mistakes," but to say, "You know what, it's okay because Jesus died for that. And Jesus came to rid me of that guilt." And shame loses its power when it's brought into the light. And once that begins to happen, once we begin to share that with each other, it goes a long ways. I think about a woman in our church who came up to me one time, and she said, we had just talked about the verse where James says, "Confess your sins to each other so you may be healed." And she said, "Can't I just confess it to God?" And I said, "You can, but you won't be healed." And she was a little confused by that. And I said, well, the power of the healing comes from telling somebody else, because you bring it out into the light, and then suddenly it just shrivels up and dies.
That's great stuff. You quoted Brene Brown in your book. She said, our job is not to deny the story, but to defy the ending, to rise strong, recognize our story, and rumble with the truth until we get to a place where we think, yes, this is what happened, and I will choose how the story ends. And yet I've seen Satan so many times, because of mistakes we've made, people can't move forward. They just keep looking in the rearview mirror. Have you found that kind of common in your ministry over the years?
You know, our friend Gary Black used to say, looking at the rearview mirror is a poor way to drive a car, which is typically what we do. We're always looking in the back. We're always looking out the back window. And obviously there's things we can learn from our past, but it's a terrible way to live, because it makes us constantly trying to correct things from our past that are over and done with. And you and I both know we've all struggled with things that we've tried to make right that other people have moved on from, but we're still stuck in it. We see people get stuck in grief, where they go through a difficult situation and they just can't get beyond it because they have to keep reliving it in their minds over and over again, trying to create a different outcome. When that's done, it's gone, it's moved on. So let's continue to do something great with our lives that we have. And a lot of that is providing justice, mercy, and humility. I think that there's this lie that we believe that if I think poorly of myself, and if I stay stuck in the grief and I wallow in the sorrow and the misery of the mistakes that I've made, that I'm a humble person. When the reality is you're just as arrogant as somebody who promotes their goodness, because you're still focused on yourself. You know, C.S. Lewis said, humility is not thinking less of ourselves, it's just thinking of ourselves less often. And so if there's a way we can take the focus off of ourselves and onto somebody else, it really does allow us to find mercy for ourselves, to extend it to ourselves, and exhibit humility as well.
Well, if you just tuned in, we've been talking with Rusty George. He's a lead pastor at Real Life Church in Valencia, California. Just had a new book, just came out a couple weeks ago. I was fortunate to get an advanced copy and read. It's called Justice, Mercy, Humility, A Simple Path to Following Jesus. Breaks down Micah 6:8, a verse I know that's familiar to a lot of people, but he breaks it down and helps you get your arms around it. If you need some encouragement or hope, I really want to encourage you to pick up a copy and the thing that we've talked about. And Rusty, if you'll share one final time about the resources that are available for churches and how they can get a copy of this book.
Absolutely. Well, as a church leader, I'm always looking for resources we can give our people that they can do in a small group setting, or that maybe we can even leverage from the weekend stage. And so with this book, we put in some, not just small group questions in it, but also some to-do lists of some ways you can live these things out for you and your family. So the book's going to have that for you. But also, if you go to the website, justicemercyhumility.com, you can not only buy the book, but you can also, if you're a church leader, download resources. And I'm giving you all the messages from the series. Hey, listen, take them, use them, call them your own. I don't care. But it would be a great way for you to be able to leverage the power of this verse and the resource of the book as well. So justicemercyhumility.com, or you can go to my website, pastorrustygeorge.com, for free videos and books and interviews and podcasts and things like that can help you in this process as well.
Rusty, it's been great to catch up with you, man. Thanks so much for your time, and look forward to seeing if the Lakers can make the playoffs, buddy.
Well, we're all praying for that out here, so I appreciate your prayers as well. It's been great, Greg. Thanks so much.
All right. That's Rusty George. I'm Greg Horn, and this is Hope is Here.
CMI is your full-service human resources provider in Central Kentucky. For 15 years, CMI Human Resources has taken great pride in helping organizations and people work. Whether it's employee handbooks or help in filling a position, no job is too large or too small for CMI. Contact the professionals today at CMI Human Resources, 859-296-2800, or online at cmiconsulting.com.